So they just put a temporary
No,
book out.
Well, they
Hold
take,
for the 2 years.
yes, they
But in
take,
like
you
the
know,
days my
just the
school, I'm
raw
like,
ads.
oh,
As
you
a
guys
percentage
roll.
of
I'm
the
like,
budget.
all the time
You
you
see them with the numbers on it.
But it is,
But the leg behind
no,
me.
but that's
Yeah.
always a lead.
So at least you
But
have
there's
some.
these
Tax
slides.
affecting
I love the
municipalities,
couch.
Yeah,
2025, and you can hold on to that until next year when you get a complete book.
yeah. That makes sense.
I better start.
Yeah, I'm clicking it and that is,
Feel like, because I was like, down.
oh no. I just push in.
Okay, I'm recording.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, the Bella Vista work session for January 21, 2025. And I'd like to welcome our new council members, Travis Harp of Ward 1, Shay Newport of Ward 2, and Anna Isbell of Ward 3. First item is review of the minutes of December 16, 2024. And I don't know if this is appropriate, Jason, but I was thinking it would be good if the new members didn't abstain, because otherwise we'd have to have perfect attendance to pass them next week.
I'm glad you asked that. There's absolutely no reason to abstain from approval of the minutes just because you weren't at that meeting.
Yeah.
There's no reason to abstain from that. People have, I don't know if some thought they needed to or whatever, but
Yeah, I've seen
I mean,
people
there's no
do
legal
that.
requirement to do it. It's always up to you whether you choose to abstain, but.
Yeah, so for some reason that ran through my mind today. I thought, well, if everybody abstains, this is going to be a closed vote. Next item, this is just a reminder that next week we'll have the election of a mayor pro tempore, and that's up to city council who they'd like to choose.
You'd like me to go over that rule?
Yeah, go
How
ahead.
that works. So your rules of order talk about how we handle this election, which occurs at the beginning of every year. I'll just read this to you, very short. The council shall, at the time of organizing in public session, elect one of its members as mayor pro tempore. Any council member may nominate himself or any other member of the council for mayor pro tempore, and no second of a nomination is required. Each council member shall vote by naming his choice by voice vote if there is more than one nominee for a position. A majority vote of the city council shall be required for election. And then it goes on to talk about what the mayor pro tem does. So, well, when the mayor brings this item up, there'll be nominations. You can nominate yourself, nominate another person. No second is required. If we have more than one person that's nominated, we'll call the roll and just vote for whomever you want to vote for. And if we've got actually more than two, we may have to work through a couple of rounds to get to the final, but whoever gets a majority would win that, and if it's a tie, the mayor would cast a vote.
And what votes constitute a majority? Just make sure I'm clear.
4 votes. 4 votes. It takes 4 votes for you all to do anything.
Yep.
And it's, so most, since I'm thinking about it, we got a lot of things to talk about tonight. But the mayor only votes when the mayor's vote is needed to pass something. So that doesn't always mean a tie. It could be, a quorum is 3 of you plus the mayor. Well, it would take 4 votes to adopt something. So it would take 3 yeses, 0 noes, 3 missing, and 1 vote for the mayor would adopt something. So there are circumstances where it's not a tie where the mayor votes. But yes, anything you do takes 4 votes.
Okay, thank you. Next item would be new business. Number B is an ordinance, or letter B, amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Bella Vista, to increase procurement authority without soliciting competitive bids from $35,000 to $42,921 to conform with state law changes provided for indexing said amounts to inflation, amending sections for purposes of conformity therewith and for other purposes.
I can explain this. So beginning January 1, new state law took effect, which changed the $35,000 bid requirement that we're all very familiar with, and said it will be a number that is determined every 5 years that has been indexed to inflation. So it was announced shortly after the beginning of the year that new number is $42,921. So that left us with a couple of options. It'll be that number on the state statute for 5 years. And so we can just change our ordinance to change that number to reflect the number. The other option you have, which is not on your agenda, would be to change our ordinance to also index it for inflation, so it would automatically happen. Mayor chose to just go ahead and put a solid number in there. I think that probably is just a little bit easier for everybody, even though it's an odd number, just to see that number, and then we can address that if needed every 5 years, which is not a terrible burden. You do not have to do this, though. You can always, the council can put a more stringent requirement on city purchasing than the minimum state requirement. So if this council decided it still wanted to require a bid at $35,000 or at more than $35,000, you can. So you're under no burden statewide or pursuant to state law to adopt this ordinance, but it does just make things easier. I'll put it that way, and it's what I assume most other cities have already done. So.
Do we know how often that you want to spend $35,000 without council approval already?
It's not what it's about. It's not about council approval. What it does, anytime the city buys something that it could potentially cost more than $35,000, we have to go to competitive bidding, which means we have to put a notice in the paper. You have the opening and you do all the formal stuff, and then we get the low bid. And then if they're qualified, that comes to you for approval of a contract. Any contract over 35 comes to you. What this change does, it would change that number to 42,921. So if we think the bid is going to be, if it could potentially cost more than $42,921, then we're going to bid it, and it's going to come to you for approval. It also says that anytime we spend $42,921 or more, it's going to still have to come to you for approval, whether or not it was a bid. So
okay.
it brings it all together to mirror and mesh together.
So people do find it somewhat cumbersome, so they like not having to do the bid process if they don't have to. Of course, we'd like to get things for as good a price as we can also. But, yeah, the bid thing is a little bit cumbersome. I do believe, I think most people believe in keeping council up to date on things. In fact, later tonight, we have an example of that. We had something that was $35,000. So we went ahead and did it. But I told Karen Hunt to come here and explain it to you because it's a bid to do some engineering analysis on a road. And we don't know what the results could be, and it could be a big deal in a negative way. So, you know, we wanted to bring council up to speed. When there's something significant, we want to bring you up to speed so you don't get blindsided later on and say, why didn't you tell me about this? You know, so anyway. Next one, so that's something we'll be voting on next week, whether we want to do that or not. And
this will be first reading on this one as
yeah,
well. So it's an
that's
ordinance.
true, it's ordinance. And Jason, you know, mentioned to me, hey, you could just make it so it's indexed automatically. And then first I thought I'd do that. Then I thought, well, 5 years from now, I don't know what that mayor and council, but, you know, maybe better leave it up to them to figure out what they want to do then.
Is staff hoping to have that go third final, or does it matter?
We haven't discussed it.
Okay.
It's not life or death. It'd be fine if it did. If it doesn't, that's fine too. It doesn't have an emergency clause, so it'd still take 60 days for it to take effect. It's just as long as we know when we can do that 42-921, that's the important thing. So.
Yeah, okay. Next item is C, an ordinance amending section 2-140 code enforcement officers of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide for development compliance officers, defining their authority and for other purposes. Taylor, did you want to speak about this?
Sure. First note, there is a typo in there. If it caught your eye, I know it caught Councilman Wells. There is a number in there that's 1,500 open cases. 1,500, that is a typo. It was 150, and I will get that corrected for the regular meeting, and also just let the record show that it's 150, not 1,500. That would be insane since December 12th. That would just be, I don't even know. But essentially, this is coming to you guys as a proposal to give me and my staff the authority to write citations. We have a new development compliance division within our department that focuses on enforcing the development chapters of code, specifically permit enforcement, things like that. And we would like the ability to have the heavy hand should we ever need it for a citation, rather than passing that on to another department, just being able to start the project and end it. That way we're not passing it on and keeping it, involving other staff whenever it could be handled a lot more streamlined with just our one department. We used to be able to write citations. June 2023, that changed whenever we had the restructure. And so we're just asking to get it back. Every other planning department, city engineers, planning directors have the authority to write citations, so it's very in line with what the general practice is, just as a standard. So that's what we're asking for.
The authority that would only go so far as to enforce chapters 107 and 109. That's it.
I saw that, and I would like to propose that we change that to the whole development section code.
So which chapters?
It's 101, 103, 105, 107, and 109.
Okay.
That's the development section.
Okay. Well, if the mayor wants to put that in the thing, I can do that for next week, but tell me ahead of time, it's much better.
Yeah.
I had a question for you, which actually Larry Wilms brought this up to me today. So would this, the way it's worded, would it make it clear that it covers short-term rentals?
That's outside of those chapters.
That's not a part of the development code.
Because I did think one of the things you were going to have this person do was be involved in the short-term rental part.
There are also surprise sections of code throughout our local ordinance that are not development ordinance that are development related, like section 28, our stormwater discharge, and what the discharge is. It says that I'm the responsible agent for that, yet I don't have the authority to write citations for it. So I'm not sure if we have to go down the route of specific chapters or just because of how our local ordinance written as a whole. it's kind of difficult to dictate which chapter specifically.
I can do it however you want. Y'all just have to let me know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want to have the authority to enforce the entire code, then that would be a different thing than what I've written.
Yeah, no, I noticed that of course here, as I'm opening the packet, specifically zooming in there, but what I sent was pretty general and broad, so that, my apologies, that did catch me a little bit off guard.
Well, as it's written now, it's 107, 109, and if we need to change that, I'll change it to however you want to do it.
Can the code enforcement officers currently issue citations?
Yeah, for any part of the code.
You just don't want to have to go to them?
Well, the chief and I have came to an agreement of what is traditional code enforcement versus what is development compliance, and that's what we're trying to line out. So your traditional code enforcement is going to be like unsanitary, unsightly conditions, tall grass, trash cans been left out in the front. You have inoperable vehicles on site, things of that nature, whereas anything that has to do with a permit, like the building code or the zoning code, that's more under my wheelhouse than them. But they do have the authority right now to write a citation for any section of our local ordinance. Should
Yeah.
something pop up between now and then.
Yeah, I was thinking the concept was this person would be focused on the kind of the building side and the STR, those two things.
Yep, anything development related.
Short-term rental,
It's mentioned in here though, in the agenda item form, in the background, it's mentioned in there.
hang on. I got to see what chapter we ended up putting that short-term rental ordinance in, because that's,
It's not in the development code, just like illicit discharge isn't.
well,
I think it's section 12.
so short-term rentals are in, yeah, it's in chapter 16. It's
16,
an
yeah.
entirely different part of code, so.
Why would short-term rental be included in
It's a good
a lot of
question.
these building ordinance development compliance?
So STRs are reviewed as a permit by our office because it's essentially almost like a land use type permit. Traditionally, planning departments oversee anything like that, so we house it. So it just made sense for our department to also enforce it since we house that as well.
Well, I don't want to have to reorganize our entire city code, and
Yeah.
I'm concerned about saying you can enforce these two chapters and that one section over there and this one thing.
Well, that's what my
I mean-
proposal was, very generic, just including the planning director and the chief of police.
To enforce everything.
Yes,
Okay.
that was my proposal.
Okay.
So there would be some overlap.
No, we've got it lined out pretty tight between our two departments as to who would do what.
There's going to have to be real tight communication, because if one department goes out and enforces something, the other one's got to know that it hasn't been duplicated.
Yeah.
So I'll chime in a little bit here. I support this wholly. When we brought over code enforcement, part of the issue was that the building inspection side that Taylor's folks were still doing, they would find violations and then they would say, hey, can you cite for X? And we'd say, sure, but we need the investigation. We need certain things on the police department. We need the investigation, we need the documentation, and we'll cite for X, so now we're ready to go to court. It just was messy because we're asking them to provide us all these things they already did. So we just thought it'd be easier to let...
It start with us and it end with
If it
us.
starts with them, then they can do the investigation, and they can write the violation for what they were dealing with. As far as STRs, I mean, the PD still will deal with the aspect, if we go to an STR, they have like loud parties, they're parking in the streets, they don't have the required parking. You know, the things that we can enforce, will enforce on the enforcement side, but then she also needs to be able to enforce the fact that if they aren't getting a permit, you know, that aspect of it.
Well, then I think what it needs to say would be, the city hereby vests those persons designated as code enforcement officers by the chief of police and development compliance officers by the planning and development director with the power to enforce all city ordinances and codes.
Yes.
Correct.
And then we already have it lined out between departments on the things she's going to handle and the things we're going to handle. We've already lined that out. My folks are happy with it, her folks are happy with
Well, I can make that change.
it. I don't see a downside to just making it generic and allowing blanket authority to enforce all. I just don't see a downside to that.
But again, you know, if they get a short-term rental call and then you get a short-term rental call and they're calling everybody, as some people do, they'll call everybody. Are we gonna have two different officers going out investigating the same
We already have
thing?
that line. Our folks know if it's dealing with them not getting a permit, then, we push it over to see you guys. If it's them not, if it's not partying, parking, it goes to us.
I'll reword that for the regular meeting.
Okay, thank you, Chief and Taylor. Any more questions about that?
Well, I was just gonna ask, how many officers are you anticipating?
I have one right now.
Okay,
We're trying out one.
so that person's on your
Yeah.
budget?
That's on my budget. They went live December 12th, and that's kind of what's discussed in there. They've already responded to over 150 calls since December
It's been
12th.
fantastic.
Yeah, no, very quick response. I've only heard positive things.
Okay, I just didn't know if we were gonna have to make an adjustment.
Oh, no, no
to
budget
departments.
adjustment. Nope.
Okay, that's it, thanks.
Okay, thank you. D is an ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding, authorizing a contract with Superior Automotive Group in an amount not to exceed $247,640 for the purchase of 4 2024 Dodge Durango police pursuit vehicles for use by the police department. Chief, did you want to go over this?
Yeah, so we're asking for a bid waiver because these are 2024 models. And so technically there's no state bid because the state bid is for 2025 models. But these are brand new 2024 models. We've done this in years past because they have some leftover models. They're brand new. They haven't been touched. They want to offload them, so we're getting a good price on them. We're actually getting it at better than the 2024 bid price. And so this is already capital within the capital budget. The price includes fully outfitting them. We have Siloam or Superior Automotive. We have them outfit our police cars now, and that saves us on the tax end on some tax obligations. And so it's a very efficient way to do it. So that's why the pricing, you look at it, comes out to about $61,000 or so per vehicle. It's because all the police equipment's included in there. So when we take possession of the vehicle, they're already outfitted and ready to go. This is beneficial to us in that they have 4 vehicles ready to go, and we can get them purchased and get them in the queue to get them outfitted and out early this year, as opposed to waiting as 2025s roll in and then paying the 2025 price for basically the same car.
Are these all replacement?
Yeah, they're all replacement patrol vehicles. We try to run our patrol vehicles about 110, 120,000 miles, depending. We actually get some more than that, so we get good use out of our patrol vehicles. Right now, we have a mixed fleet of Durangos and Tahoes. Just for the new council members' knowledge, we try to purchase the Durangos. We're trying them out as a patrol vehicle. We haven't had them in the fleet for more than a year. We think they'll be a good platform. They're about, on average, $10,000 less than the Tahoe. And so we're trying to get a mixed fleet, save a little money, not just get all Tahoes. The Tahoe's pretty much bulletproof. It's a great platform, but it is more expensive. So we're hoping the Durango will get us good use out of it. We've been working with Terrence folks at the street department. They do the maintenance, and they say it's looking good so far. So that's kind of why we do Tahoes about a third, Durango's about 2/3, helps us some money.
Could you mention about the selling of the old vehicles
Yeah,
with the
that's-
replacement?
Yeah, so what we'll do is, some of the old vehicles we keep as pool cars, so if we wreck a car, we strike a deer, we have some older cars to put officers in. We also keep some pool cars for travel vehicles and things like that. We'll have some pool cars available, not old police cars, but nicer cars for council members and the mayor to travel to Little Rock when they need to. So if you need a vehicle for that in the future, let me know if you're going on business. But then the other vehicles get sold at auction, and that money gets put back into the general fund. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I just figured since we had so many new.
On average,
bid over.
just a guess, I mean, how much do we recoup on?
Boy, I wish I had Vanetta here because he knows. I would probably say $7,000-8,000 probably for one of the old vehicles.
Okay,
That's just a guess. Okay, they're well taken care of, but they're pushing 120, 30, 40,000 miles.
right, okay.
Do you know, are the officers okay with the Durangos versus Tahoes? Do they get?
Well, I think really if I asked them, they love the Tahoe. It's bigger, it's more roomy and stuff like that. It's a bigger vehicle. But that being said, they like the Durango. It's a good platform, I believe, for a single patrol officer. We keep Tahoes in the fleet for the supervisors just because sometimes we have to take more people around. We have more room in them. They're a little bigger. They can take more equipment. that the sergeant carries for the general purpose of all the officers. But the Durango for just a patrol vehicle for an officer, I think it's much better than the Charger was, and they fit themselves in the Charger, and the Durango is much more roomy than the Charger was. We have to move away from Chargers because they're getting away from the V8 all-wheel drive Charger. They're just the V6, and we've had trouble in the past with blowing those engines up, so they don't last as long. Anything else?
You might want to stay up to the
Maybe
next
next.
one.
Yeah.
The next one's waiving requirements of formal competitive bidding and authorizing a contract with Superior Automotive in amount not to exceed $46,575 for the purchase of one 2024 Chevy Traverse with police equipment for use by the police department.
Yeah, so this one is going to be a detective vehicle. We had to rotate a detective vehicle out. They're ready for another one. We're asking for a bid waiver because the Chevy Traverse is not on the state bid. There's not much on the state bid that works well for my detective vehicle. The Traverse is a tried and true platform. We try to stick with things that we've used in the past because we know they have good history. And again, so this money is in the capital budget. We need a bid waiver because it's not on the, there's not much, ever since COVID hit, I don't know if anybody in the past who's worked with this has looked at the bid sheet, what comes out annually from the state bid sheet. It used to be loaded with every car you could think of, and it's really whittled down to almost nothing. The dealers, the manufacturers don't really want to put their stuff on those competitive bid sheets anymore just because the market's so, they just can't make the money they need, I imagine. But anyways, the Traverse is not on there, and that's why we've asked for a bid waiver for this. But I did some research myself, and the price that we're getting from Superior Automotive is as good as we can get if we just went out to market and bought it off any dealership. Plus, again, they'll put the police equipment on for us, which will save us on the backside on some taxes. Okay.
Chief, are you asking for third and final reading on both of these?
I would like that because, well, especially for the Durangos, because they're ready to go, and I'd like to purchase those down. They're being held first right now, so yes, I would like that.
3 to 5.
35%. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Next one's a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Blue Guys IT in the total amount of $73,504.20 for the purchase of total security solutions to enhance city cyber security efforts. John, you want to explain a little bit?
Sure. This is a renewal of a product that we've been using for a few years now. It's a pretty comprehensive cybersecurity product. It not only is our antivirus on every machine, but we actually have people watching our network 24/7, 365,
Doesn't have an emergency clause.
alerting us of security incidents. It ties in with our Office 365, so if people are trying to log in, hack into our 365 environment, they're watching that as well. So we consider it a pretty critical suite of software for cybersecurity.
So to answer this question, in case this is a purchase that's more than $35,000, you'll notice it's not been competitively bid. There's an exception, and that is renewals of contracts which were already entered through either through bid or through some other mechanism of waiving it, can be renewed without competitive bidding. So that's why you see it this way.
I noticed on the invoice there were, like the quantity was kind of a high number, so is that paid for on an individual device basis?
Yeah, I believe you're talking about the quantity of 215. So yeah, that's 215 devices that we're going to license. Yeah, I think it comes out to $300 some a license. Yeah, and that's an annual bill. Yeah. Any other questions?
As I recall, when we had our intrusion a few months ago, one of the reasons we discovered it so early on was because of total. That
Correct.
They recognized that it was a Sunday
Yep.
evening, I think, and they told us really quickly about it.
Yeah, they placed a phone call and took action very quickly, so definitely, there's no way we could staff this place 24/7 for that amount. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Item G is approving the mayor's appointments of John Nuttall and Rick Head to positions on the Bella Vista Board of Construction Appeals. And these are people who are already on that board and were willing to serve for another term. So normally when people want to do that, we feel like they're doing good, we don't, advertise it or seek any other people. Larry?
What's the term on that board? Is it a 3-year?
I think it said end of 28, I'm going by memory, I think it says that in the attachment here. Yeah. So that'd be 4 years
Yeah.
then. Yeah,
No, 5. Yes, 4 years, sorry.
4 years.
yeah.
No,
So,
no.
3 years.
No, 3 years, it's 3 years. It's 25, not 24.
26, 27, 28, yeah. 3 years. I get my fingers out in the calendar.
You know, it's a 3-year term.
Can figure out the sheet.
oh, it's January 1, 2028. Yeah, I was thinking it was the end of the year. Okay, very good. Next one is resolution creating a fee for filing applications to the Board of Construction Appeals. Taylor, is this in your area? Oh, Chief Sims.
So give you a history on that. I understand that there was a fee in that back in 2017. And for some reason, that fee got dropped to no charge at all. I'd like to see that fee come back, and the reason for that is, we don't have a whole lot of these right now, anyway. But I would, because it does cost time and effort to put this together. So I'd like to reinstate that $200 fee back.
200?
It's 200,
Okay.
that's correct,
So-
per application.
Do we know what happens to the original fee before they got denied? Do they get a refund of that?
You know, I'm not for sure. They would, you know, if they get denied, they get a refund on that fee.
I don't think
Those
so,
applications
no.
are not.
Folks, I apologize, I'm kind of new in the Board of Construction Appeals, and this come up when we were looking at the ones that got appointed. So we got to looking at some of the things that happened in the past, so with the meeting coming up in the future, we decided that we might as well just go ahead and bring the fee back on to make it kind of fair to everybody moving forward.
Chief Sims, can I ask how many appeals we see on average?
Not very many.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know if there's maybe a couple since it's been created.
We didn't have any last year.
I know we didn't have it last
So
year.
zero last year.
We don't see a whole lot of the Board of Construction Appeals. We used to see them, I believe, Taylor, in the past.
Yeah, we used to have a couple a year. The fee is also in line with the Board of Zoning Adjustments as well. That is also $200.
Can I ask, I noticed in the brief it said that it was, to help offset the cost of staff time. When there is one, is there an estimate of how many hours are spent on these from a Bella Vista staff
I don't
perspective?
think we really had anything, but it does take some time. I'd say probably Amanda, when she's putting together meetings and so forth, maybe 3 or 4 hours or so to get things going if there is a meeting, or when she has to adjust the meeting. So get everything out there, one at a time. And everything else.
You've got the meeting notice to prepare, you've got documents about the case that you need to summarize and present, so there's a number of
correct.
things that need to be put together by someone.
That's correct, and that's my
In the
admin
department,
assistant
so.
does all that. So it's probably about that amount of time to get a meeting set up, and making sure everybody's notified appropriately. All the members on the board are notified, so whether we have a meeting or not, they're still notified. Because that meeting is it shows up every time, and then it's canceled if there's no meeting, so.
How much is the original fee, Taylor?
It was 200.
Yeah,
It
we're
was
still-
200 in 2017.
It seems to me like the best way for our city to make more money would to have more commercial businesses, and this seems like it makes it more expensive and more complicated to get businesses, but if it's a life safety issue, then I'll take a different stance. If the fire department's like turning these permits down, is that the case?
Well, no, that's not the case. This is somebody has an issue with what we say with their construction, and we have an issue with it, and we're holding it up, they can appeal that to this board.
Okay. Like, for example, if you told them they needed a standpipe in there and they said, we're not spending the money for that?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. They can go and appeal this to the construction appeals.
Okay.
But it doesn't happen very often, obviously.
I haven't had anything.
So about a year, you didn't have any.
Thanks, Chief.
It's in place there just in case something like that happens.
most of the time the issues are the code says this, we tell you to do that, and they don't want to, typically what it is, so.
They want
It's
to.
usually easier to put a few more boards of lumber in, fix something, than to say, oh, no, I'm not, file an appeal, wait a month, sit through uncertainty, let their project stop,
Yeah, that's basically what that is. So, like I said, I haven't got a thing on
Next one is I, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a fourth amended trail maintenance agreement with Bella Vista Village Property Owners Association, Inc.
Okay, this is just basically, we are increasing our amount that we're willing to put towards soft service trail maintenance. It's currently $70,000 per the maintenance agreement. However, the budget that was approved in December for 2025 has the $90,000. So the budget doesn't need changed. It's already in there, that extra 20 grand. We just need to make the maintenance agreement match the 2025 budget. So that's what we're proposing. Our portion will be $90,000. POA will also do $90,000. So giving our soft service trails in Bella Vista a total of $180,000 for trail maintenance. That's really it. That's all we're doing. We're just upping the number.
Larry?
So it's guaranteed we're gonna budget 90,000, but are we going to spend 90,000?
It's not guaranteed that we'll spend it. It's the limit. It's the max we're saying that we will reimburse the POA.
So who wrote the contract?
Our attorneys.
It's a joint effort between their attorney and me.
And I'm just wondering about the language, is that whether we should say up to 90, up to a maximum of, rather than, no, it doesn't. It says we're going to commit to that whole amount.
It says a maximum not to exceed.
Yeah, it's a maximum not to exceed. It's the same contract we've had for 10 years, and, we'll need to go back and negotiate with them further if there's something we need to change about that, but we only pay for maintenance and repairs as it's needed, right?
Correct. We get a monthly bill from the POA and we reimburse that.
They bill us for that.
Yeah, it says, in the first sentence, to provide a maximum of 90,000 each.
Right. I can't get mine to pull up. Yeah, there it is.
And up to the maximum amount of it, then, yeah.
Isn't it true, Taylor? I think recently we haven't been billed up to the maximum, but Trailblazers maybe is backing off. Some of them, they were doing some maintenance.
Yeah,
Kind of
essentially.
backing off a little bit.
Yeah, this was us preparing for a possible increase of maintenance from the POA due to a decrease in volunteer programs in Northwest Arkansas. Just generally, regionally speaking, it's been a conversation that's been happening the last several months. So just in response to that, we wanted to be prepared, and that's why we budgeted 90,000 just in case, because of course life safety is our number one, and making sure those trails are accessible is what's on our mind. So safe and accessible, and it's of course one of our largest public amenities here. So yeah.
The contract itself says the city and the POA hereby agree to provide a maximum of $90,000 each year, $180,000 total per year, for the duration of this agreement toward expenses related to the maintenance and upkeep of a trail system in Bella Vista, the initial construction of which blah, blah, blah. So, expenses and upkeep have typically been expensive, but if for some reason that is not necessarily required, we're not obligated to pay $90,000.
Thank you. Next one is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with VLP and Equipment Share Company pursuant to a Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement for the purchase of one new case backhoe in the amount of $140,000 for use by the street department. Karen, did you want to? Oh, you're up already?
So this has been on our 5-year capital plan for a while now. We finally reached the mark where we were looking to purchase it. We currently have two 2012 backhoes that were purchased when the street department first began. And so we're trying to get ahead of this and get this purchased now. This is going to be under a Sourcewell Cooperative purchasing agreement, which means it's already been out for competitive bidding, and we're able to piggyback on that contract there. A benefit about this particular backhoe is that we found one in stock. And so without having to go through the bidding process, that definitely shortens the time on us to actually receive that piece of equipment and put it to use. It'll just be used for our normal right-of-way maintenance, street repairs, and also if any equipment was to be serviced or go down, we would have this one available. So it is in our capital budget that was approved for 2025.
Any questions? Thank you. Next one is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Riggs Cat pursuant to a Sourcewell cooperative purchasing agreement for the purchase of one new Caterpillar paving and compaction roller in the amount of $57,788.80 for use by the street department.
This one again was a planned purchase on our 5-year capital budget. We did have it a little bit further out, but under our new resurfacing platform where we're going to be focusing on each section of the city, rotating the years, it's important that we roll those Durapatch repairs in place so that they can last the duration until we get to that zone for resurfacing. It is also on the Sourcewell, so it's already been competitively bid. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one's a resolution expressing support and participation of the City of Bella Vista in the federal advanced effective accountable policing and criminal justice practices to enhance public trust and public safety program. Chief, is this the LESO?
Yeah, this is LESO. That's a mouthful, that's the legal federal definition of it. But it's really the LESO program, which is Law Enforcement Support Office. And basically, that's where we get a lot of our equipment, military surplus equipment, federal government surplus equipment. Over the years, it's a program where we receive equipment free from the government. All we have to do is go get it, and we have to maintain it. We don't pay anything for it. Years past, we've gotten vehicles. We've gotten one of our armored vehicles. We've gotten a Humvee. We've gotten generators. I mean, you name it. We've gotten backhoe, earth moving equipment. We've gotten all kinds of things through this program. Tools, workout equipment, just on and on. It's really, we've done this for since I've been here, since about 2017. And this has been very lucrative for the department and for the city. It's helped us to get a lot of equipment. Otherwise, I would have had to come to council and ask for money-wise. I would have to guess over the years, I would push over probably $1 million worth of equipment in the long run that we received this program if we go out and buy it outright. So it's a very good program, and we just have to now annually, it's the requirement the Biden administration put into place. I don't think it's a bad requirement. Basically saying annually, I have to come in front of council. We have to let the public know, hey, look, this is some of the stuff we might get from the government, because years past you've seen some rioting and things happen throughout the country within the police have brought out a bunch of military equipment and people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you have that, that's horrible. Because it looks mean, it looks tough, when it's really just armored vehicles to protect us from getting hurt. It's hard covers, bodies, basically. So it requires me to come to council, to explain the program to you, to seek approval, to still participate in it, but doesn't cost the city anything whatsoever, except for my personnel's time to go get equipment and drive across the country and get it. Over the years, we've gotten some trailers, and that's one of the trucks I've come to council to get, which is to haul these heavy trailers to bring this equipment back. But the small amount we pay in that is nominal compared to what we get back. We've even, after a year, these are mostly non-controlled items, which means after a year they fall off. The mandatory requirement of keeping it for the police department. So if we decide in a year we don't need something and it falls off, like we don't have use for it anymore, we could either sell it or we could give it to other entities within the city. We've given some stuff to the street department before that we just didn't need anymore that benefits them. So it's benefited the city in general over the years. Questions, concerns? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next one is designating authorized dispersing officers and municipal depository board for the city of Bella Vista for calendar year 2025. And this is a couple different things. One is having another person to be a signatory. we have several people in a row to be alternates in case people are missing. Jim Wozniak used to be on this as the fourth person. And I didn't put any names, I put blanks on these, but I was wondering if Larry Wilms might be good. Mostly just want somebody who's around. It doesn't come up very often because there's several different choices.
Way down in the pecking order.
He's willing to do it.
Still important.
It brushes up your resume without too much.
Bonus the next time I apply.
Yeah. And the depository board talks about when we have excess funds, how to invest them. And it meets very occasionally. It's the finance director and myself and one council member.
That's where we choose our local banking institutions to deal with.
Well, sometimes it's things like CDs and things like, because you have to invest, in really conservative ways with your excess funds. So.
So I do it. We really need to have names in those blanks before we have our regular meeting, or we'll have to start doing amendments during the meeting in order to replace the blanks with names.
Yeah.
So we could kind of informally discuss who might want to fill those blanks, and that might cut out some of that procedure.
Yeah, on the depository board part, so.
I heard Larry.
Larry sounds good.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to take a vote? Or, I mean, how do you want to handle it?
Just
I think
whether
we'll have
people are interested in it, or, just a discussion kind of thing.
Is it a one-year term?
It's for this calendar year.
Yeah, good question.
I think
Larry did a
Larry'd
good
be
job.
great.
I'm Team Larry.
You did a lovely
So we
job.
need someone for section 1 and someone for section 2, or the same person?
It can be the same person.
Is anybody keenly interested in the depository board?
I think Larry would do a beautiful job.
What are your thoughts, Larry? You're surprisingly quiet.
Have not done that before, but I'm up to the challenge.
Does it even meet once a year, Mayor?
I'd say it meets at least once a year, yeah.
Okay. I think Larry would do a beautiful job.
Well, what I can do is I'll put Larry's name on this and fill in the blanks, and then you can
Thank you for
make
the
amendments,
voice of endorsement.
Okay, the next one is not on the list. For now, it'll be letter N, budget reconciliation. And that was the one I passed out to you, a one-page item. And that is something that we do every year. And, if somebody's a little bit over on the department budget, you can't be over budget on everything. The total budget has to be in line. So, but a lot of times then one department or another might spill over a little bit. So that's the point of that. Then we have quite a few discussion items. Item N is updating the trails license agreement for 2025. Taylor?
You're hoping to have this as a regular item on your new business for you guys next Monday. Just tidying up a few more things of it. It's quite the extensive cleanup we've been doing. Since I took or inherited trails in September of last year, we've basically been doing an audit and cleanup of everything in the department, and so one of those items is a licensing agreement. And just to make sure that we are staying as tidy as possible, I would like for it to go with the maintenance agreement, so they happen at the same time. But essentially, we found some parcels that need to be included in the licensing agreement that happened during the COVID era. Just guessing that with COVID and everything else that was happening, a few parcels slipped through the cracks. So we're getting that exhibit tidied up and that licensing agreement for your review, and hopefully we'll have it ready to go on Monday. But just a cleanup effort to go alongside the maintenance agreement.
So what you're saying is that there are some parcels in the POA that are added or have been identified?
They're all POA. Yeah, they're all POA properties that need to be
Require
included.
our acknowledgement and approval? Require our acknowledgement and approval?
Correct.
Yeah, it was an agreement between us and the POA about the trails, and Taylor found that the description wasn't 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So just to kind of a little background on this, because it's a little awkward what we've done with these trails, but these trails are on private property, and so we can't use taxpayer funds to improve private property. We can only use taxpayer funds to provide public benefit. So what we did is we entered into a licensing agreement with the POA where the general public would be allowed to use all of the trails. And that is, so it allows everyone, whether or not you're a member or have a card, or, to use it. And then that also gives the city the legal authority it needs to be able to spend any money toward the improvement, maintenance, upkeep, or anything regarding the trail system. And so we developed this licensing agreement about 10 years ago and amended it, I think maybe once or twice, but there were trails being built that I'm not sure maybe even we knew about. I don't even know, but they became part. We've got more trails, but no one ever bothered to add it to the agreement or anything. And so we need to make sure if we're going to spend taxpayer funds on any of that, then we got to make sure we've got this straight.
So, thanks for the explanation by both of you, that was very good. So the next thing is the 2024 Planning and Development Year in Review, and that's by Director Taylor Robertson.
I printed all a packet for you guys to have. I will not go over that whole thing. I will summarize very briefly by just a few slides, so that way we don't bore everyone to sleep here. I'm a data miner, but that doesn't mean that everybody's a data miner, so I totally understand. But you have my memo to you all to read. Really the meat and potatoes is the landscape slides that are in your packet. So we'll kind of just hop through those real quick. So I just wanted to give you guys basically an overview of what our department did last year, because it's pretty impressive, and I'm pretty proud of our staff. We had a pretty record-breaking year, just to kind of say the least, basically, about the situation. But a lot of people like to focus on issued permits. I'm going to give you a few stats to kind of chew on. I know issued permits are everyone's favorite stats to talk about. This is the number one that people are asking about, because it shows how many houses are going to be built or how many future residents are we going to have. So that's typically the most number one statistic you'll see be thrown around. So that's the first one I'm going to show you here. Just to kind of give you a one-year comparison of issued permits, GECs, we had a 65% increase from 2024 to 2023. Residential permits, we had a 29% increase. Miscellaneous building permits, 9%. Commercial, we had a 75%. You see that GEC column, that's individual site grading and erosion control permits that were issued. It is over the 900 mark. That is just, that's the highest number we've ever had. That's insane to even think about. We have staff, we have a full-timer and a part-timer now that's reviewing that. Before it was just a part-timer. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the 3-month backup that happened. Well, that's why. We had an insane, unknown, like unprecedented amount of GECs turned in, and then a even higher amount that we issued. So we had to do a whole department effort to get those caught up, but we are in a great spot now. Residentials were just over 600, you'll see, and the miscellaneous was over 800. And I can give you the official stats on those as well later on. Since I'm a planner, I like to look at 5, 10, 20-year comparisons. We're going to look at 5-year comparisons tonight. GECs are up 142% compared to 5 years ago, 2019 to 2024. Residential permits are up 129%. Miscellaneous is up 70%. Commercials 444%. Very misleading, because that's like 9 versus 70. So that's quite misleading, but it is still a huge jump. Planning reviews, we had a jump as well, just from 2023 to 2024. Our planning department and planning commission had a 32% increase in review load. And then our 5-year comparison, 2019 to 2024, we had a 146% increase for our planning staff at planning commission. These are the numbers I like to look at. These are the submitted applications. So that means that's something we've all touched, it's tangible, someone's turned it in, whether we've issued it or not. We've either had to review it, turn it back, it's incomplete. We still spent staff time and resources on it. Our staff still did work on it, so I still like to focus on these numbers, because that's still work that your city staff is doing for you all. So looking at GECs 2023 to 2024, we have a 43% increase, 888 submitted GECs versus 622, 2023. You'll notice we had 910 issued GECs, so we issued some from 2023, that's why that number's different. We still had some lagging from December that we issued in 2024, so had a higher issue rate than we did with received. The submitted residentials, we had a 50% increase from 2023, 541 versus 810 in 2024. Again, record-breaking number for single-family units. Looking at the 5 years, another, yeah, I put them in red because they are just so impressive, but 2019, we only received 399 GEC applications. Fast forward 5 years, we received 888. It's a 123% increase in just 5 years. Then you look at the residentials, 293 in 2019 versus 810 in 2024, giving us a 176% increase in workload that we received on just the residential building permit side. Summarize that for you. Planning reviews, 2024 we had 327. Planning reviews and applications that our planning staff review and issue permits, so like STRs, things like that. Your temporary sign permits, your permanent signs, it's 780. Engineering applications, the GEC is 888, residential 810, commercial building applications 46, miscellaneous 959, subcontractors or MEPs 670, giving us a total of applications that we touched up to 4,189. And then looking at the 5-year increase, we discussed this just to let you have those in bullets, short altogether. Planning reviews, 146, engineering, 123, res, 176, commercial, 411, and then 98% in miscellaneous. And then again, this is where everyone else, the regional aspect, likes to look at, so we can kind of talk about maybe our increased population, what we're looking at in the next few years, the issued permits. Still impressive numbers when we're looking at 2019 versus 2024. Still over 100% increases in everything, but the miscellaneous building permits, we did take a slight decrease over the last, or we still had an increase of 70%, just under 100%. 506 versus 858. It's no surprise that I love talking about septic system. If we've met some other situation, we've probably talked about septic. So also as a planner, we're supposed to keep our water and sewer, our basic utilities, to function at the core of our minds constantly. So an infrastructure update, and it's just fun data for me to talk about. Pulled from the Benton County data GIS department. We have known 13,708 septic systems in our city limits. Village wastewater provided 3,703 are currently on sewer. And then of course our 2024 applications, something that we need to keep our eyes on. Only 89 of those 810 applications are on sewer. It means only 11% of our residential development this year is on sewer. The rest were on their own individual on-site wastewater management system or septic system. That's a decrease compared to 5 years ago when we had about 29% of development. So that's quite the increase when you're looking at statistics and just how much was being developed on sewer. Just to keep it in mind, I'm going to pull up the map that we all like to look at, but Bella Vista makes up 48% of the entire county for septic permits. The whole county of Benton County only has 28,801. We have 13,708 of those. We also have more septic systems than any other city limit and the unincorporated area of Benton County have. And then just to keep the water on tap, literally 16,589 units. That includes residential and commercial. So here is the city limits, and unincorporated is down here. You can see your number of permits or known septic systems in this column here, and you'll see Bella Vista has got the highest, 13,708. Benton County Incorporated comes in at second with 10,116. And then there's the map, the infamous map. The red shows septic system. This is the whole county, and of course, you can clearly see where Bella Vista is. Some other important highlights from our department. We coordinated with you all in the Planning Commission on several ordinance projects, including retaining wall terracing requirements, flood prevention updates for state compliance, 6 rezones for our first outdoor lighting ordinance for the city of Bella Vista, driveway grade update, zoning notification update, and then temporary grass parking. A regional impression, this was pretty cool. Back in October, Bella Vista was highlighted at the Quad State, which that means the Far State area, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kansas got together for a regional American Planning Association conference, and Bella Vista was highlighted at 3 separate presentations. So I was at 2 of those. One of them was actually surprised to find out about that we were included on that for a trail project that we had done. So that's a pretty cool highlight that gives Bella Vista some pretty noticeable recognition and well-deserved recognition. Grants and awards. Bella Vista was awarded a $81,000 grant for active transportation awareness and education as required by our bike and ped plan that we will get this year for 2025. And so you'll be seeing some things from city staff, communications, planning, active transportation staff once that money's released and we get that project rolling for 2025. We are also working with a regional group and benefiting from a large grant from the EPA that would give us around $500,000 worth of stream bank restoration and riparian zone restoration as well along the Little Sugar. Development code reform, don't forget, we're going to be coming to you guys here in the spring. We've been working on it all year for 2024 on top of all these record-breaking numbers of current planning we've been doing. We've also been working on long-range planning, updating Chapter 107, Chapter 109, and 45 square miles worth of zoning, our city zoning map. So we're excited to get that to you. We've been working hard on that. Another important highlights, we also do some events. As you know, our tree board hosts an Arbor Day event every year, the spring tree giveaway, the fall tree giveaway. This year we did some more fun things. We did a sticker art contest with Cooper Elementary. We did a month-long, basically, celebration of Arbor Day. Along with the planting ceremony, we partnered with Java Dudes who gave discounts to people who came to that to get more people to watch people put a tree in the ground. This year, I don't know what we'll do to get more people out there other than 25% off coffee, but we're working on it. And then we also reviewed 8 trails events. Those are the major events that come through our city. And then, most notably, as we discussed tonight, in December 2024, we started a development compliance division, and that has been going swell, to say the least. And then board updates. The Planning and Development Department oversees 4 boards. That's the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Adjustment, Active Transportation Advisory Board, and the Tree Advisory Board. So we attend all of those as well as the meetings that you all have here to keep things moving on. And that's the part that I will not bore you all with because there's almost 100 pages worth of everything they've talked about, everything they voted on. If they denied at the table, that's what's in there, so you can see what your boards have been up to for 2024. To summarize, the Planning Commission and its staff had 17 large scales, 14 incidental subdivisions, 2 conditional use permits, the 6 rezones, 32 waivers, and then partnered with you all on a vacation, an easement vacation, public easement vacation. And then the Board of Zoning Adjustment had 20 zoning variances. So that pretty much summarizes that, as well as the Active Transportation Board meeting minutes are in there as well, and what they've been working on as well as the Tree Advisory Board. With that, that's all I've got for you guys. Happy to take any questions.
Hey, Taylor. I know when I was on planning in Fayetteville, the American Planning Association, they had like seminars and stuff like that. Do they still offer that, or is there an online resource for that? The only reason I'm asking is that with the new members, I don't know if it would help them to know what you're referring to when you go 107, 109. In some people's minds, it might sound, but I know that was very helpful for me to go through those seminars, and I didn't know if they offered something like online or something like that, or just kind of a crash course on.
We typically will do a training. I don't know if you remember last year, last March, I actually had the APA and the Regional Planning Commission come here and give you guys training to prepare for the development code reform, and we're going to do that again before we start doing public hearings and whatnot on this. And of course, have our council's news.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm looking like down the road when we get to all the work that you guys have done. Just, I don't know if it would make it a...
Yeah. Now, our membership comes with free training for elected and appointed officials, so we definitely take advantage of that.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else?
It's a lot to take in, so thanks for the written report to give us a chance to study it at our leisure.
When you're bored.
Thanks for all your great work this year.
Thank you.
It's been a very successful department, I would say. Next one is item P, Oldham Drive Depression Investigation, Streets Director Karen Hunt.
Assistant
We got some,
Superintendent Dan Downing's going to help present on this one. Got some handouts for
Got
you.
some snippets here of what we're looking at. This is the discussion item the mayor touched on earlier that we'd like to bring to the attention of the council. It's on Oldham Drive, just east of Tavistock Drive in the eastbound lane, heading down towards Highway 71. What we've got going on is a rather large depression in the road to the point of the asphalt cracking and breaking, and it's in pretty close proximity to a really deep hauler there. You can see on that first page, kind of gives you the terrain contours. And then on that second page, we've kind of highlighted the area that has already started to crack off, and it's created a pretty serious depression. We went out and initially reviewed it, and it appears that section of Oldham was built with fill across that hauler and pretty well all the way down to the highway there. And in the past, when we've gotten into these types of things, we generally find old trees, rotting debris, just a really poor fill choice, not suitable for roadway. So we got with the director of planning, Taylor, and the city engineer, Chris Brackett, and we all met out there again and basically came to the conclusion that we needed to get a little bit more investigative work done on that. So Taylor put out for a request for qualifications for a geotechnical firm. Thank you for that. She went through the interviews, selected a company, and we met with them on site and kind of came up with the parameters, kind of a two-phase ordeal. Right now they're going to do the investigative work. They've got 2 borers and a core sample set up for next week. And then we've asked them, one, to identify the extent of the problem, and then suggest as many repair options as possible for us to review. Once that's determined, whatever that cost is looking like, how serious it may be or may not be, we may be bringing it back to council. It's not something that was planned in the budget. It was just one of those things that came up. And with the amount of traffic and the traffic loads, bigger, heavier construction vehicles and the things that are coming through there, we need to make sure we get this right first shot. So it's kind of where we're at. That last page is Terracon's drilling and boring plan for next week. They just submitted today their approved traffic control plan. So this will be taking place next Monday and potentially going into Tuesday. The 2 borers will be vertical borers to establish where bedrock actually is, at what depth. And then the core samples will kind of give more of a clue as to what's going on with the fill in there, and there may be some decomposing materials or unsuitable fill for the type of road that it is. Once we gather up more of that information, we'll bring it back to you and keep you guys up to date.
Is it similar to what you guys encountered, I don't know, Sundown? I don't remember the other road.
Sunset?
Yeah.
I don't think to that extent.
Okay.
That was kind of a bigger construction.
Are you guys thinking total road closure or do one lane?
It depends.
I know, I know you can't forecast that, but.
If it gets into being a more serious operation, it will probably have to be shut the road down and get in there and get after it. For now, for the boring, their traffic control plan is just shutting down 1 lane at a time. There'll be flaggers on site, so traffic will still get through, maybe slowed up a little bit, but they'll keep moving them for now.
Best case scenario that it's something, and I know we're talking
Best case scenario is something that's not that bad, maybe a couple feet or something, and we can go in there and handle it ourselves.
Okay.
What's very concerning is the proximity to that really steep hauler and the fact that it may be sloughing. So
Worst case, the road could fall off into the hollow.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I'm just, because Oldham, I mean, as far as traffic goes, I know we're seeing a kind of probably an uptick on all the roads, really. But Oldham in particular, that one's
It's
getting,
well-traveled.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think about how it's gonna impact,
Yeah.
daily drivers and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
There'll be some frustrated people
Yeah.
for sure, but
Yeah, we don't have the luxury of building a side road or whatever, like what you guys did out there on.
no, we would look at it, figure out the best detour plan.
Okay.
Probably suggesting that they slide over to Sunset and go down that way.
Ironically enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Travis, did you have
Yeah,
something?
they answered one of my questions, but also, please thank your members for working very hard during the snowstorm. And also thank you all for the Trendsetter Award.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Larry?
I could probably identify at least 3 other sites that may not be as severe as this, but probably have the same condition.
We've
underlying
got
condition.
a few other sites on our radar, and that's part of the reason we, Taylor put out this request and did the interviews and come up with this company to potentially keep working with us if necessary on some of these other ones. But yeah,
The only other one I'd heard about was Wellington.
Wellington, and then there's a new one that's kind of starting to develop there on Chelsea, on East Chelsea.
There's one on the
that I
West
noticed
Chelsea too.
out running during the snow routes. It's getting, and generally when they show themselves this quick and this extreme, it's 90% of the time it's poor fill choice or decomposing organic materials under there. And
Well, the rumor is that Cooper gave bonuses when they saved money on projects. The rumor. True or not, I don't know.
Dana?
Yeah, just a question on Lancashire, where we had the issue during the storms. Do we know if there's any evidence of this showing there, or did we know if it was the same type of fill that was on Lancashire that resulted?
I don't know, because that was a state issue to deal with, and so it was really out of our hands from start to finish.
Okay.
I think there was a little bit of a failed culvert issue there that started having the water run over the road and getting through the road and seepage, and just kind of softened everything up, and then it caved in.
Do you happen to know whether they intend to put a guardrail where those barrels are? Because they left orange barrels there forever.
I
It
have
looks
not
like it
heard.
might be for a guardrail, but.
Yeah, they
They haven't shared their intentions.
Yeah,
Never had a
when they
guardrail in
finished that, they came and told us, hey, we're done, we're gonna leave the barrels out there for now. And that was kind of,
The reason that it washed out is that the upstream side of that culvert didn't have any erosion protection against it, and so we had that bad.
when it ran
rain.
over.
It just chewed it up,
Yeah,
literally. And they didn't install any inlet protection when they built the new crossing either. It may be larger in size, I don't know if it is it?
I
Is it
don't
larger
know
in
if it was
capacity?
bigger or not, I know they.
And the reason being is that you won't have any backwater then held back if they made a bigger culvert across it. But I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't really.
Relay
they
that
didn't really clue us
information.
in too much on what they were doing, they just said we got it.
Any more questions? So we kind of just want to bring it up to you so you'd be aware, because it could end up being expensive.
Yeah, like the mayor said, the first portion of this we're able to handle with our budget, and it was getting there close to the limits, but with it being what it was, we decided to push forward and get the ball rolling and bring it to you guys. But anything beyond that, well, you guys will be clued in first.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Very good. Next one is about recycling. I think we're putting that off till February.
Yes,
Because
sir.
of,
February 18th.
Yeah, in our work session there, Jennifer Fagan from Republic Services was available to come. We had this on the list not knowing if she could come or not. So the next one is our status updates from all city boards, commissions, committees. at city council meetings at regular intervals, and this is suggested by Wendy Hughes.
Just in a hope to have more transparency across the board, I know that there's things that happen at the active transportation board, the tree boards, the arts council, just hearing what's happening in our city with these different different committees and commissions and boards, the A&P commission, having them just regularly present what's going on at a city council meeting, just so we're all aware. It's like I can't give that information out, and I'm not attending the other things, so just have an opportunity of more transparency, and just if we get them coming at regular intervals, just to pop in and just give us an update on what's been going on, like quarterly, or just the library council as well.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I actually printed out the commissions and boards that are listed on our website. Is that a pretty good list, or
Yeah, that's pretty
what
great.
you're thinking of?
I'm really, press that real quick. Let's make
It
sure.
would vary. Some of them we wouldn't need to hear from very often. It would vary a little with the board. And one of the things I was wondering about, for example, the library advisory board,
Yeah.
if we had the librarian coming, I wasn't sure
And she sits on that board, yeah, so like,
if we wanted them both, or just
absolutely.
the
Well, the streets
librarian give what
committee,
the summary is.
like, I could talk on it, or if Karen or Dan wanted to come and talk on it, or you want to talk on the streets committee, since you're also on it. Things like that, just having somebody, a representative from that
Yeah.
organization coming and speaking about what's going on.
Well, I think I touched on that when I was going through all that stuff with the library. Because I was amazed that really nobody ever comes to council. I mean, off of our other committees and all that other stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
was pretty amazed that, because we have committees that I didn't even know that we had. And I think it would be great, gives them an opportunity to kind of shine a light on what they're doing. And I think that would be the takeaway on that, just for the residents, in Bella Vista, just to know, what they do. Or even for them to say, I didn't know we had a tree board, I'd like to be on that, because there's a lot of things that we do in this community that I don't think anybody's really aware of.
Yeah, a lot of volunteers involved. Yeah, I was thinking we'd probably want to not have them all at once,
no,
and spread
that'd
them
be
out.
awful.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Have it sprinkled across.
And that's what I suggested at the time, was like either quarterly or,
Yeah.
bi-monthly or whatever, whatever we deem appropriate, I guess.
And some of them
Question,
wouldn't need to
Jason?
meet, like the Board of Construction
Travis.
Appeals, we
yeah.
wouldn't need to hear from them.
Or the planning
Yeah.
commission, we don't really need to hear from them, like also, because we can watch their meetings.
And really, we need to attend some of those
Yes.
planning commission meetings, because we get they dump
Yeah.
it up on us when we have a
It's just like
rezoning or a appeal
advice,
or
if you're
whatever.
able to attend those meetings in person,
So.
you can watch them later, and it's fantastic information.
Most of your boards, other than Planning Commission and Board of Construction Appeals and Board of Adjustment, are advisory committees. They should be making advice to you.
Yes.
And they would do that through reports. So your rules already provide a part of the agenda for reports, which includes boards, committees, special committees.
Yes. It's
So there's a period of time already set aside in your rules for
Yeah.
reports. So we really wouldn't need to change anything other than just to add it to the agenda.
Just getting them actually on the schedule.
So would you have it on the city council meeting rather than the work session?
Well, it would have to be during the regular meeting.
Yeah, I was thinking it would be more seen by the citizens also if it's regular
Absolutely,
meeting.
televised.
You only act during regular meetings. So what I'm talking about, your agenda is for the regular meeting. That's where the reports
Yeah,
would be made, and
Yeah.
you could recognize a staff member to say something about the board, or
yeah.
do it however you want. It could be a
Sure.
written report in the agenda packet. Maybe that's all that's needed.
As an example, the planning commission planning report tonight would be good to be presented again at our official meeting next Monday. Simply to get that out in the public.
Oh, you mean the one Taylor?
Yes.
did? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. The next one is, thank you for that, Wendy.
Yes.
Is regular council meeting protocol, discussing the item at hand in an open forum before making a motion for a vote.
Yeah, so not to disparage the previous council, but there was a tendency at times for things to kind of get sped through, and I'm not sure why, But a need to immediately motion for a vote when there's no really time to actually discuss the items. And we aren't able to debate items here. This is more of an information finding time. Our big discussion should be happening in the actual city council meeting. And so just making sure we're taking a breath before we go to motion quickly. Say, look around. If you have something to say, make sure you say it. But it's kind of a nice decorum thing for us to keep in mind.
You meet a couple people with quick trigger fingers.
Quick
I
trigger
would
fingers,
say.
and I know the last city council meeting, there was an instance where their motions kind of came really quickly, and then it got confusing, well, who goes first at the stoplight, before we stop. It got a little confusing, so just having a time to where we just sit and take a breath, and just make sure we're all okay before moving on.
Well, I think, speaking of that, I don't think we need to change any procedures. I need to be more mindful and make sure people
Yes.
get a chance. I was talking to Jason about this for the meeting, and if somebody makes a motion, then you can have somebody second it, and you can still make sure people get to talk, before you vote. So, but it's fine to, very good to have talked before.
Interject a point of order.
One thing that last council would do on occasion, once in a while you need to table something. It's a logical thing to do. But some people were using tabling as a weapon, I felt.
To definitely table
They
it.
didn't like something. Instead of voting no, they make them competing, it's a little messy. I think it's best to just use tabling when you're actually, sometimes you really want to table something for a couple months or whatever. But you know what I mean? I think if we all play fair, it'll work out fine. It won't always vote the way you want, but it'll work out fine.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, that's a good point to bring up. Let's see, the next one is city council hybrid meeting capabilities. That's council member Anna Isbell.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up this subject, in the case of inclement weather, health or illness issues, even possibly traveling for work or other reasons, if we could implement a way to be able to, whether it's Zoom or other technology, where we were still able to attend the meeting from wherever and also still able to vote on issues, because that's what we're elected to do is, to pass ordinances and to do all that. So I think it's important that we're present at as many city council meetings as humanly possible, but there could be that chance where, whether it's, a number of reasons why we might not be able to in person.
Yeah, what we have right now is we have a provision that we can have a remote meeting if everybody's remote.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I suggested that after COVID ended, it was a surprising struggle to get that passed, but anyway, we did. Mm-hmm. But we haven't had the technology so far to have just one person be remote. We can look into that and see if that can be done. If we did it, if we did want to me personally, I think if we made a rule like that, we should say maybe only 2 times a year or something. Because I guess there's some people that do it in some other cities all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't show up.
Some cities do it all the time. Some cities have it where the members who are hybrid or remote aren't allowed to vote. I don't really care for that much.
Well, I would ask Jay, that's to Robert's rule. I mean.
I would, so this is one of those things where I've got a lot of opinions, but they're not relevant. I can tell you what you can do, okay? So by rule, there's a way to accomplish that. Even a hybrid meeting with some of you present, some of you not. So there's a way to do that. That assumes you've got, number one, the technology to do it, because in order to do it, you have to be able to participate and to have people see you participate to the fullest extent as if you were here. So that means they've got to be able to see and hear everything you're saying, of course. You've got to be able to see and hear everything everyone else is saying, including members of the public, there's all sorts of that as well. So that's what has to be accomplished on that. I happened, for some reason, to be watching the Fayetteville Council meeting here in January.
It's a little unhinged.
And it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I thought, they're still going, and they were debating each other about why the meetings were so long, and it was 10 o'clock at night. And this issue came up, and something they had proposed, which I'm not going to call into question anything that they're going to do, maybe I am, but to say, well, if you appear remotely more than so many times, your vote doesn't count, I think that's a problem. So I would not recommend that you go that route. I can see you saying, if it's limited to only a certain number of times per year or something, I guess you could do that, but it just really, I think, could create some problems. I could see. Let me first, before we start talking about what we might need to do, we adopted a new Rule 10 about this issue, and so it's very brief. Let me read it to you so that you know what we've got on the books now. Consistent with the requirements of the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act, any meeting of the City Council may be conducted via video conferencing technology, Zoom, GoToMeeting, etc. Such video conferencing technology shall permit audience viewing and participation to the fullest extent permitted at in-person meetings. In the event of the calling of a special meeting of the City Council, the call of the meeting shall indicate that the special meeting is to be conducted via video conferencing technology or state the physical location of the special meeting. The decision to conduct any meeting of the City Council via video conferencing technology may be made by the mayor when, in the mayor's judgment, usage of video conferencing technology is necessary to preserve the public peace, health, or safety. This was written taking into consideration COVID and everybody having a problem, not necessarily just one of you having a problem. So it does say the mayor could determine that any meeting could be virtual if it was necessary for public health, safety, and public peace, health, and safety. So we don't have a provision for, say, one of you who's out of town that wants to appear remotely. We don't have that. And I don't know if John's still here or not, but okay. John, I remember at one point we talked about it. Right now we don't have either because of the cameras or the technology or whatever, the ability to do it with just one person. Could you, maybe that was just the other place, maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, what we have now is, as everybody knows, we're using two different rooms, and the room across the hall has more equipment than this one does. So I think certainly, his name just escaped me, but the gentleman from the TV station.
Dave Todd.
Yeah, Dave. He's requested additional cameras and microphones and things. And we also have a contract for him to stream our meetings, but now we would be moderating a Zoom meeting on top of that, which I'm sure he's probably willing to do, but we may have to renegotiate that or something. Because I guess my concern is, somebody stands up, has some public input and they're, just getting up there mumbling or something, is the remote participant going to be able to hear them? Are they going to be able to see them? If there's some slides or plat maps or something like that, and you're participating on one of these, can you see it? Can you read it? It can be done, but it's all, challenges that we need to think about. I want to be supportive of whatever you want to do. And it, can be done. And do you want to allow public input via Zoom meeting? Do you want to allow a third-party person like Grafton and Dole for somebody to remote in and do their presentation remotely?
Any public comment needs to be in person, because if they can phone it in, it'll never stop. It gets, you know what I'm talking about from other places, and it just, so is it a reasonable thing? Yes, but boy, we got to be careful about how you have it.
Travis?
Yeah, I don't want to say that I support this, because I know there's challenges and definitely IT challenges, but my son can play video games with all of his friends online, and they can all hear each other and see each other, and it's possible. I know it is. I'm not very good with the IT stuff, but I'm just sure that that's not an option. I'm sure that's not an obstacle that we can't overcome. And then the other thing is, I don't think, speaking for myself, but I think that this city council is going to be proactive. I don't think it's the goal of the city council to skip out on the meetings and do it from home. But if somebody's sick, I would rather them participate online than to not show up or show up and get us sick. So, I support this, and I think it's a doable option for us.
Shay?
I just want to say, yeah, I was thinking of Mr. Wozniak when I read this item and how he had had an injury and it made his mobility difficult, and it was disappointing to see him have to miss so many of his last meetings as a city councilor. And perhaps if we had something like this in place, he would have still been able to participate at not such a great cost to him, and Chief Sims helping him get around, things like that.
I did a little bit of research when I saw it was suggested, and for the county, Benton County, you can, they pay people by the meeting, and you can attend remote, but you don't get paid. No, we don't pay by the meeting, we have a flat fee situation, but that's how they handle it. So it probably discourages it, but doesn't eliminate it. But I think we can look into it. And, it's up to the council whether they're favorable to it, but it sounds like they would be.
We have some near board members like on it. I think it could be a helpful tool.
Yeah.
And the cost to implement a program like that, I know it took us a bit to get the room across the hall set up for us to go live over there. That was a challenge.
Could these meetings happen over there?
Sure they could.
Yeah,
They could,
in fact, we started having them here just to be kind of a more informal kind
More
of thing.
important also because the planning commission, we had meetings that would run over, and it was like, oh, well, shoot, where do we meet at?
Yeah.
So,
What I found happened, this is a whole different group of people, but that if you're sitting up there behind the dais, it starts getting formal real quick. And so the point of a work session is to do this. It's to be able to have a little more free flow and more comfort and being able to, and it seemed like everybody was on stage when it was the other way, and it just didn't facilitate a work session as well, it seemed.
Yeah, it does have a more formal feel to it for whatever reason.
Well, it's a close proximity here that makes it, I think, a little more informal. We're all around a table and
Yeah,
we throw spitwads in.
yeah.
Well, John, I'm aware, I'm on a board, Friends of Hobbs, and we do a hybrid meeting. Sometimes I'm remote and they have their meeting. And we've got this gizmo we bought that basically auto-directs the meeting. So they'll have it sitting on the table, and then they'll have screens, and then as people talk, then it just happens, it's like the 360-degree camera, and it opens the camera up to that person as they're talking and then moves it as someone else talks. But it was not a cheap piece of equipment. And that sort of acts as the director, I guess is what I'm saying, instead of having somebody do that part of it. I don't know if that would help be cheaper or what. But.
Whenever I'm watching meetings at home, I can normally hear every participant, so,
easily.
yeah.
And my thought process was really just for the city council meeting, not for the work session.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually more important. I mean, the work session is
Is
important in
important.
its way, but it's not technically
But you
a
can
real
still get the
meeting.
information from a work session and make informed decisions
Yeah.
during the city council
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay. So we'll take that under advisement. Next one is you. I have a couple of additional items that people brought up. Tree cutting and spraying.
I have
You've come up quite recently.
Miss Barina? Yeah. She contacted me. I know that that Carroll Electric is doing their annual destruction along the roads. I didn't get that video. I don't know if you tried to send it to me.
I can't figure out a way to get it to you.
But there is video, and I think I spoke with Jason about this last year or the year before.
It comes up every year.
Yeah. Well, and that's we're at that cycle again, where they're coming through and just taking out trees left and right. But I didn't know what we can do as a community to either try to have a conversation with Carroll Electric
or something. I really don't know how to delve into that, because I don't know if we can put restrictions on how much they can cut, what kind of trees they can cut. Yeah, I know. And then that's the whole thing. And then the not the pesticides, but whatever they're using to kill the vegetation on the road.
Herbicide.
Yeah, herbicide. Thank you.
Roundup or whatever it is.
Well, and then therein lies another problem with the settlement on Roundup. I mean, that was a multi-billion-dollar set, but I mean, I'm not gonna get into nuts and bolts of that, but I'm just saying, but, you know, what the implications for our groundwater runoff, et cetera, so.
I think that one thing you can do is invite, and it's been a long time since they've come, invite the Carroll Electric, some public relations person, or not necessarily, maybe somebody that actually knows their vegetation control program person, to come up here and give you all a talk about this. And then that would allow people to come and hear what they say. And then we'll be able to feel out really what they're planning to do, and maybe where there's some openings where some things could be discussed. I mean, I know what they're going to say. I can tell you what they're going to say. We have to cut that back, because when the ice comes, you want your electricity. And if we don't, and the ice comes, we're not going to have electricity. And it's really hard to argue against that. And they have easements that let them do it. And so
well, and
that's where it's going to come down to, but not to mean, I mean, maybe they need to talk about what their plans are.
Can we put requirements on them to show us their plan? You know, I mean, I know we can't ask that of other, well, I mean, I guess we do technically, but.
Well, I'm not saying it's impossible to put maybe, I mean, at most you're talking about they would give a report to say they cut the trees.
Or at least let us know where
it.
they're going, because it just seems to erupt out of nowhere. I mean, it's like, you know, you see the big bulldozers coming in and you're like.
I can't speak for them, and maybe they.
I know.
Be willing to say, you know, they may have a plan, and they'd say, all you gotta do is call us and we'll tell you what our plans are for next year, you know, but we just don't know.
Well, but that.
I'd like to interject.
Sure.
Because of Ms. Barina's influence, I called a guy who, she gave me the name and contact info for this morning, and talked to him. And I gather he's a foreman level or maybe project manager level guy. Anyway, later this afternoon, Cassie Lapp came into my office and said that Carroll Electric wanted to meet with us. And they were willing to meet Monday, or if we'd like to meet sooner. And I said sooner. So, so we're in the process of putting together a meeting. It would probably be a good idea, what Jason said, when I meet with them I gathered somebody higher up. She had a name, but I don't have it in front of me. So we're going to meet with them, and I could easily say, you know, have somebody come and meet with council.
Well, I'd certainly like to sit in on that meeting if possible.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. But that's, I mean, I'm already waist deep in this thing.
Yeah.
You know, trying to figure out.
Well, they call it their vegetation control program.
Yeah.
And they probably got a webpage, or, I mean, I don't know. But the reason I say that is because they at least express that they have a well-thought-out plan for what they're doing and how they do it. Sometimes it doesn't appear to be.
Spray anything and everything, cut it all down.
And it could be that people on the ground aren't doing what other people think they're supposed to be. Who knows?
Well, that's what I mean, it's pretty alarming.
It's a two-way conversation. You know,
Sure.
They need to know what our concerns are as much as we need to know what they're trying to do.
Absolutely. But that's what I mean, it's pretty alarming when you drive through a neighborhood, you know, one day and you have these big, beautiful trees, and then the next day, it's a barren wasteland.
limbs are all
Yeah.
straight.
Yeah, so if we can figure something out with that.
Travis?
Yeah, this is my ignorance showing, but do we not require them to have work permits just like every other company in the city?
No.
They have free. Oh, I meant to ask you, who does have the easements or the right-of-way, or who has?
Well, they're utility easements that were reserved to the developer, depending on where you're talking about in town, okay? So many of them were reserved to the developer, and so then they made agreements with, at the time, with Carroll at the time, and whatever the name of the cable company was at the time, at Southwestern Bell, back when all this stuff was founded, for placement of their utilities in those easements. They weren't necessarily dedicated to the public. Now, there are some in town that are public utility easements. They're not all that way. In fact, when you pay a Cox cable bill, Cooper Communities gets some of that money, even though it's not on the bill. Because they, at one time, unless they renegotiated out of it, they had a contract that they inherited from TCA, or actually originally, I guess there was a private cable system up here that what they called a franchise fee, which was not a franchise fee, but they agreed to pay so much to Cooper for all their customers, which ended up getting built into their rate. So I know when we adopted a municipal franchise fee, which is a standard fee according to statute. Cox was saying, well, hey, we're already paying a franchise fee to Cooper. We didn't know it. I don't know anybody knows that, and I don't know how much they pay. But that's been very lucrative for Cooper Communities, because everybody's paying Cooper every time they write a check to Cox. At least they were at one point.
Shay?
I've spoke with the folks at Carroll about this, both before I was elected and then when the issue came up last week. So I do know for their herbicide program, they did get rid of some of the most harmful chemicals and the most concerning chemicals, the ones that would be found up in Roundup. So that's not been a part of their program for about 4 years is what they've said. And then in addition, I've spoke with Corey Smith of Corporate Relations, Matt Martin, and another individual, John Worley. So I do think just an open line of communication, right? Like if there's a concern about an overreach, like is there any kind of recourse, and just having an understanding, I think would help. They've been responsive to me both before I was elected and since I've been elected, so I do appreciate their willing to talk with us, their willingness to speak with us.
And every year they do an annual survey to their customers. I don't know if you respond to that, but one of the questions is, do you agree with our plan to provide clearance for ice storm cleanups and things like that, which allows them to do that. In all of their easements, where they have private easements across anybody's property, the easement says that from this line to this line, going clear up to the sky, we will clear that out, and anything that's in there, we have the right to cut it.
I do know they use contractors. I mean, they did mention that, right? And so.
Sometimes it's more efficient for them.
Yeah, but I know sometimes they said the contractors haven't always been compliant with what they've hoped for.
One thing I would add, not that it's going to make a big difference, but for people that are concerned about any public utilities activity, not only their rates, but how they do their business or the quality of the service, you can talk to the Arkansas Public Service Commission and make either a complaint or an inquiry or issue a concern to them. And they have people that listen to that. And if enough people do that, it could have an impact.
That applies to all public utilities.
All public utilities. That they regulate.
Arkansas Public Service Commission?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's in Little Rock.
So I think we'll continue to look into that and see what we can accomplish. Next one is item V. This is the last one, at least on my list.
Oh, okay.
And this has to do with smoke and an ordinance about how often you can get permission to have fires. Because there's a person who's having fires all the time to harass his neighbors.
More of a civil.
Well, I know something about that case.
Yeah.
Now, there's a careful line I need to draw here, because there's a person who complaints have been made about that currently has pending felony charges in Benton County. The neighbors are concerned about not only smoke, but personal safety, and they have a broad range of concerns about a number of issues that have happened out there. I've prosecuted this person myself. I've got another active case. And so a couple of concerns. I know Mr. Honchel was contacted about it. We don't have a limit in the number of burns you can have so long as you get a permit and you comply with all the rules. One concern that is legitimate, and I don't know if we have an answer to, is where is all this stuff coming from that's being burned?
Yep.
And if there's something being brought to the site to burn, then you've got different considerations, because you may have you've got perhaps a dumping situation, or they're using it as a temporary landfill, or, and it could implicate environmental rules and regulations. And so I've encouraged, if there's some dumping going on, not even talking about the burning part of it, that authorities need to be made aware of that. I'll say this, I told the mayor this, and you all make the laws. But generally, it's not a great idea to change the laws for 30,000 people because of one problem. If you've got a problem that's broad-reaching, that, we're hearing this a lot, you get a feeling there's an issue, a consensus around something, yes. I can tell you that this issue with this one person is isolated to this one person. There have been multiple cases regarding him, civil commitment situations with him, and I don't want to go further into it. I don't want to compromise any pending cases, but we do not have any rule on the number of permits you can get, so long as you comply. And if that's something you want to talk about, certainly you have the authority to talk about that.
I see your point about a single case, and I'm very much in favor of that, not doing stuff just because of one thing. But it did cause the issue to come to my attention through Mr. Hanschel. How many burn permits is reasonable? I mean, burning is pollution, no matter what you're burning, it is. If we're talking smoke, it affects other people's breathing. And, I was trying to think of different things people do. I just don't know why you would need to burn 2-3 times a week even. 52 weeks a year, why would you need to do that?
And and I don't want to speak, I will paint a very broad picture, I promise. But when people are finding a need to burn 5 days a week.
What are they burning? I mean,
in my mind, and I'll put it this way, because that's the conversation I had with Chief Graves. I don't think he's still here, but anyway, I've called the fire department several times, and I've talked to Chief Graves ad nauseum about this, because I'm not in favor of putting limits per se, but even maybe a verification process. Take pictures before, take pictures, send it in, what you're gonna burn, take a picture after you burn, show that it's gone. Or, and I'm just kind of spitballing, but I don't really know, to get around this without, like you're saying, change the rule for one to affect everybody.
Standing guy right there, you can
Could I
ask.
ask Chief Sims' opinion about this, please?
Yeah, so it'd be nice. And I had a visit with Mr. Hanschel, and I've also visited today with Attorney Kelly. And yeah, I agree with Jason. There's no reason to change a limited amount of burns. When somebody's got a permit and they're burning in the right, which in this case they are, which I don't know where this burning every day is coming from, because I have no documentation that says this particular person is burning every day that didn't get a permit. Only one that he didn't get a permit. So yeah, what are we talking about here when we're limiting burning, when we don't have a whole lot of burning going on anyhow within the city, or we'd have a lot more complaints. So.
And our ordinance already says, even if you have a permit, in the smoke, you can't intrude with people with smoke. So even if they have a permit and they're burning and the smoke is blowing toward the neighbors, because let's just say this guy's trying to irritate them, they can be cited for that. That's already a violation.
So I received an email that says, I think it was on Thursday the 16th or one of those days, that says that somebody that person was burning again, but it also said they had a permit, or they found out they had a permit to burn. And they burned on the following day, which they had a permit to burn on that day. So, I don't know, nobody contacted us that I know of to go out and check on this particular burn. I just got a couple of emails.
Well, and I don't want to really get into the nuts and bolts. I mean, I know we've had the conversation, but that's what I mean, is that it is an ongoing and.
Yeah, and if it's something like you and I talked about, if it's something that's ongoing and he's not getting permit for and he's burning that much, then that, like I told you, that's a problem, that's an issue.
Well, but that's the problem, is that you can call, he's calling sometimes every other day. I mean, I think he called January 2nd.
There was maybe 4 or 5 we had in January, with 2 of them being the 16th and 17th. So But I didn't get a chance to get out there today, but I am going to go out there and see if I can figure out
Okay.
what he's burning.
Well, and I spoke with Jack the other day
So-
because you were on vacation, and I wasn't trying to keep you out of the loop. It was just, you weren't available. So, I mean, it just,
So was he on duty? He must have been on duty.
Okay.
So did
So-
they go out? Do you know if they went out on?
well, then I got into a conversation with Chief Graves, so they sent an officer out, and so anyway.
Well, you
Sorry,
read the email because you're
I
signed
just meant to
it.
ask more broadly what your opinion was on the matter at hand on limiting permits, not necessarily this
Oh,
particular situation.
I don't think that we need to go limiting permits. You talking about a couple unhappy neighbors or people on this particular street? You limit permits on some people that do burn and do burn accordingly and they burn quite a bit. And I want people to kind of burn because I don't want a bunch of leaves laying around here to cause a major fire. I want people to burn up what they can, either mulch them up or burn them up if they can. But yeah, I think limiting them, there's a lot of people that I think would not be very happy about that.
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be more people unhappy than there is the couple people on the street.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I'm not a fan of limiting burning because, look at California, for example. We have a different atmosphere here, the humidity's different, but nonetheless, it still provides some protection for the homeowners to allow them to burn. Also, I wouldn't support a burn permit limitation because, well, can you leaf blow every day? Because I have a neighbor that leaf blows every single day, sometimes multiple times a day because the leaves fall. And so there is a need sometimes, and maybe he's just not very good at burning and he saves some for I don't know. But that's not something that I would support. And also, so many of my constituents have complained to me or expressed to me the desire that they don't have another option to get rid of their yard waste. And so until we can provide them that, I don't think it's a good idea to provide limitations on that. So.
The person doing this, there's a lot going on with this person. I mean, it has it's much more serious than like a few fires like once in a while.
Sure.
Okay.
This is the
Well, and
extreme
that was
case.
one thing I was unaware of
There's a lot
because I
going
didn't know
on.
the situation of this particular person. So.
Okay, well, that's the last thing on my list. You have to know.
Could go to Z.
So,
Double anything.
the longest list of things we ever had was our very first meeting in Wanda, and Iowa brand new. It was our first month. It was in January. It went almost through the whole alphabet with ordinances and resolutions.
I think we may have actually started to go A to Z and then double A, double A.
Well, I received some advice when we were at the municipal league that my term's 4 years, so I don't have to do everything tonight.
Absolutely. Spread it out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're adjourned then. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so you're Travis?
Yes.
Did Craig talk to you about the fire thing on Thursday?
Yeah.